his report in The Athletic, where he covers the Saints. He's been an observer of that team for quite some time. It was an eye-opener for us. We got it during the last commercial break. We took a look at it, and we're like, oh, my gosh, seeing so much of what's going on behind the scenes between the team and Michael Thomas, one of the best players in the NFL and a crucial player for the Saints' hopes to win a Super Bowl, and what we all agree is going to be Drew Brees' last season, we think. Jeff Duncan of The Athletic here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Jeff?
Rich, I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
I am doing fine. So let's set the stage here for everybody that may not know or needs a refresher, so everybody can be up to speed here. What happened with Michael Thomas and the Saints to get him in the spot where he didn't play on Monday night due to conduct detrimental, as the team said?
Well, there was a incident at practice, Rich, on Saturday, kind of the walkthrough portion of practice where they're going through third down game plan, and he engaged in, I guess it was a fight. Let's just call it a fight. I was going to say fracas because I like that word, but it was a fight with C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and it got out of hand basically, and Michael Thomas and C.J. Gardner-Johnson were almost uncontrollable, and coaches were involved, and it got pretty ugly between Thomas. He was almost uncontrollable from the people I talked to, and I think the Saints tried to handle it as best they could. They wanted to get Thomas under control and try to reach him, if you will, and he was just unconsolable at that point. And I think his actions towards the coaches afterward is what I've been told led to, and look, it's being reported right now, Rich, that he wasn't suspended. I think that's semantics. He was they sat him for a game. They fined him one game check, which was $58,000. But the wording suspension is important here because that would have opened him up to potentially losing some guaranteed money in his contract down the road. So I think the Saints were trying to avoid that, but also send a message to Thomas at the same time that this type of action is uncalled for, and they're just not going to stand for it.
Well, in terms of that, your story, and this is why everybody should seek it out, Jeff Duncan of The Athletic here on the Rich Eisen Show. This appears to be a, I guess, pugilistic tip of the iceberg here. Let's talk about the rest of the iceberg, about what is going on with Michael Thomas and this team that you gleaned and got in your report here, Jeff.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Rich. It's no secret, around the Saints facility, internally and externally, that Mike Thomas is somewhat of a difficult guy to deal with. He's a complicated personality. He's very competitive. He's one of the hardest workers on the team. Very driven guy. It's what's gotten him to where he's at in his profession as the best receiver, arguably the best receiver in the league. But internally, I mean, he's a difficult customer at times, not always. But I think this action that happened over the weekend had more to do with a pattern of behavior that he's, displayed within the building than anything else. They're just trying, I think, to send a message to Thomas that they need him to correct some of his actions internally. It's not just the fight on over the weekend. It was his reaction to the coaches who were trying to get him under control, and I guess this entire pattern of behavior is what led to what we saw over the weekend.
Well, obviously, again, you know Sean Payton. You know him well. You wrote a book, Payton and Breeze. Steve Gleason provided the foreword of this book that you wrote, The Men Who Built the Greatest Offense in NFL History. I don't know if you saw our first blush reaction. We placed it on Twitter yesterday, Jeff, when your report came out. We were just bringing it all in. I made a point that this has got to be particularly bad because Sean Payton comes from the Parcells world, where you don't excuse behavior, but you do treat players differently based on how significant they play a role in your wins and losses and how important of a player that you are. I mean, I told a story about Belichick saying him going to Parcells one day and saying, LT was late for a meeting. Just want to let you know, referring to Lawrence Taylor, and Parcells' response is, well, why'd you start the meeting without him? And that's where Sean Payton comes from. So this has got to be particularly significant if Sean Payton is making this maneuver. And then after the game saying, essentially, we'll let you know when the time's right about what the resolution is here and when he can come back.
Yeah, Rich, that's a great point about the Parcells' influence on Payton is very strong, and there's no doubt that this was significant. It's what led them to make the action. Mike Thomas was going to play in this game on Monday night against the Chargers. He's the best receiver on the team. He's one of the best in the league. He's a leader on this team. This is a player that the Saints invested heavily in, almost $100 million last year. And when they make an investment like that, when they make a commitment, Mickey Loomis sits down with the player. He talks to his representation and says there's responsibilities that come with this investment. When we make a commitment like this, you need to become a professional. We expect more from you when we do this. And they've done that recently with Alvin Kamara. The contract that he signed recently came with other responsibilities for Alvin Kamara. He's much more involved now with being a spokesman for the team, doing media interviews. He'll be asked to do more in the community because of that. These are the professional things that you have to do as a professional athlete when you receive a commitment like that from the organization. I think that is also playing into this, Rich, with Mike Thomas. They want him to be more professional in general. And I think this was a message sent to him.
Jeff Duncan, the Athletic New Orleans columnist, and again, author of Payton and Breeze, joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. All right, Michael Thomas appears to have commented on your article, Jeff. He sent out a series of tweets within the last 24 hours. I would like you to interpret them for me, if you don't mind, taking them all together. He wrote, first up, you ain't a snake, but they will make you. That's first up. And then it appears to be just a few moments later, the next tweet saying, think what you want. I ain't trying to clear no rumors up. That was next up for him on that Twitter jaunt. And then later on, he retweeted somebody asking if he's healthy. Please tell me you won't be sitting out the next game. That's either a Saints fan or somebody who drafted Mike Thomas in the first round of their fantasy draft. He quote tweeted that. And then responded, I was never healthy. I was just trying to help my team get a win and heal up during the bye. Had a setback, was so close, and I take my health serious. Now I'm a bad guy. LOL, and then bets, B-E-T. I don't know. Is he insinuating here, if you don't mind interpreting all of them together, and I'll give you the floor in a second. Is he insinuating there that he wasn't suspended because of what happened in terms of a fight or insubordination or conduct detrimental, that they're making it seem that way, and because he's not yet healthy? I give you the floor on interpreting all this, Jeff Duncan.
Well, Rich, I could use a translator in my social media attempts with Mike Thomas, because this isn't the first time I've struggled to interpret what he's trying to say. Here's what I would say on that. I think clearly he's trying to avoid losing a game check, even though it's not in relative terms, $58,000 to all of us is a lot of money to an NFL player. It's not that significant, but he's trying to hang on to that by using the injury as a reason. But that would be moot, I think, at this point, because the team has already filed a letter of discipline, and he was going to play. He was in the game plan for the game. So this transgression was related to the incident that was involved. He wasn't sat because of his health, and I think he's trying to present that case probably through his representation in that regard. But I would say this, Rich, and I think it's important to say this. Mike Thomas has tried to play the last 2 or 3 weeks. He's a tough customer, and he wanted to get on the field, and the team did the right thing by sitting him. They want to be cautious. That's a finicky injury, a high ankle sprain. They had Mike Thomas talk to Dr. Anderson, the leading ankle doctor in the country, to explain to him why it's important for him to be, cautious with this injury. It could sideline him for the rest of the year, but he was trying to come back sooner. That's the competitive desire and the competitiveness of Mike Thomas, and it's one of the reasons he's such a great player.
Jeff Duncan, a few more minutes left with the Athletic New Orleans columnist and reporter here on the Rich Eisen Show. Now then, this is not our first rodeo in a story like this one, Jeff, and this is not yours either, I'm sure. Why do you know this stuff as we try to move this towards how does this all get resolved, if at all? Why is this out there? Isn't this supposed to be in-house stuff? And by the way, I'm very appreciative of your reporting. But do we read into the fact that you know this, that you're reporting it, that it's gotten to somebody with a keyboard and a platform? Should we read into that?
No, I don't think so. Look, I think, we don't, in this world we're in right now, 24/7 coverage, especially the NFL, these things tend to take on a life of their own on social media. I think the Saints are going to handle this just fine. They have strong leadership in the locker room. I talked to Drew Brees about it after the game Monday. All the team leaders on this team have already talked to Mike Thomas. Sean Payton, you know him, Rich. I mean,
yes.
He's going to handle this thing. They already have handled it. I don't think it's going to blossom into anything more than what it has already. I think we've seen the tip of the iceberg, and it's going to go the other way. I really believe that the strength of this team is going to ward off any blossoming or mushrooming problem with Mike Thomas, and this was just a case of we don't want it to become an Antonio Brown situation or something that's going to, be bigger down the road. We want to head this off at the pass, if you will, and this is a great player with a great career in front of him. The team has made a huge investment, and they don't want to see this continue to spiral the wrong way. And I think it could on another team, but not with this team, with the veteran leadership and the coaching staff that's intact here.
No, I guess that's you touched upon my last question for you, Jeff, because you're seeing all the comparisons where, Mike Tomlin won a Super Bowl. Ben Roethlisberger's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Sean Payton's won a Super Bowl and a very strong-willed, brilliant head coach. Drew Brees is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Saints are an organization that's not in flux. Steelers are never an organization that's in flux. And we saw what Antonio Brown did. Now, I guess Mike Thomas is not, Facebook living out Sean Payton calling Bruce Arians names, but how similar is this? Is this something similar? You're already seeing the comparisons. Le'Veon Bell's been released here. Mike Thomas better than we do. We have had him on the show. He couldn't have been more professional and open, even though I'm a Michigan man, and he probably despises me just for that alone. But, seriously, is there any there to these comparisons that you're already seeing?
No, I think it's premature, but I think it could get there if it's not addressed. And, Sean Payton uses a phrase a lot that he learned from Bill Parcells about tending the garden, that coaching and managing a locker room is like gardening. You've got to do it every day. If you don't, it gets out of hand. And that's what Sean Payton's doing here. He's gardening. I mean, he's making sure this does not get out of hand down the road. He's addressing it head on. And I know you're right. Different players get treated differently, but Sean Payton believes in culture. He's big time into that. And he thinks they've got an excellent locker room, and he's right. It's one of the best I've ever covered. They're trying to prevent this from becoming an issue, a greater issue for this team down the road, especially for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations and expectations. Players on the team have already said this is a Super Bowl or bust season. It could be Drew Brees' last year, and I think Sean Payton's just trying to handle this situation before it.
No, I know.
Potentially could mushroom into something bigger.
I hear you, but these three tweets say this is not particularly buttoned up just yet, but we'll see. Post-bye week, crystal ball it for me, Jeff Duncan. Is Mike Thomas suited up, ready to go against Carolina? Is he out there?
Well, I think we'll know more after today. If he addressed the team at the team meeting this morning and apologized, which I was told is something he was going to do, I think it'll be behind him, and he'll be back in the lineup right away. I'll be surprised if he's not.
Jeff, thanks for the call. Again, congrats on your book, Peyton and Breeze. Jeff Duncan, forward by Steve Gleason, who is an amazing human. And this reporting, it was eye-opening, and I look forward to getting you back on to revisit if it's necessary.
Anytime, Rich. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. That's Jeff Duncan, @Jeff Duncan _ You want to follow him on Twitter. What a story.